Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back. On this episode, I got a two-pack. It's an interesting one. It's a platoon with Marshalmat, who we've seen before, and he's platooned with Ghost from Wonka, who is a pretty good player, and they're in their Object 140s, top tier on Paris. This was sent by Marshalmat saying, hey, I'm struggling with tier 10s. I was working with a Wonka guy in Strongholds as a Legionnaire, and then we ended up platooning in some pubs afterwards. He was picking 10, so that's what I used, but I'm struggling with them. And I've got two games here where these guys lose, and this is actually an interesting discussion. Ghost is a pretty good player, so let's take a look at what happens there, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on this game. So we have Marshall, Matt, and Ghost, a top tier and a 3-5-7. And I've said this a bunch before, but the top tiers have to go places that matter. They really do. And this right here is kind of a farming spot. It is also a fairly popular place for good players to go early on and get shots, but you can see that Ghost gets hammered by something twice now. Marshall does a nice job getting front. He's attempting to block any more hits. There's probably people still shooting in that direction, as a matter of fact. Whether the 140 sees them or not, I don't know, but the M451 ends up nailing Marshalmat. And so everyone and their dog knows that those two tanks are there. What does that mean? Well, if I'm the enemy team, it means that I know two of their tier 10s aren't anywhere near the most important fight, and that's down the south. So depending on where my tier 10s go, that can be a potential advantage. It also means that people can look down those long roads there, potentially spot them and get shots. I just don't like the position. I really don't, especially as a top tier. Especially as a top tier. Now, I know you can have big games here. I've seen it happen. But bringing both players of the top tier platoon that you've got into that spot, and really this spot relies on this kind of thing. I don't know what the Centurion's doing, whether maybe he's trying to spot for guys further back or he's just insane. Watch those auto-aim shots where you don't come around the edge of the terrain and it's hard to see. You'll get a lot of those kind of things where you hit the terrain. And so the 140s are busy shooting guys that really, right now in this game, don't matter. The guns that are shooting them are guns that would be out of the game if they weren't actually actively engaging them and giving them someone to shoot at. They're getting each other's way a little bit. This 154 gets in there and he gets in the way, he gets hammered. Now he's spotted. And we get another shot on the Centurion, and the T-54 is sitting out in the middle, and I think we all know what's going to happen here because there are some big guns back there. T-54 is heading on in there. He's going to get he's getting some damage. By golly, I'm going to get this T-44. He's mine. There's another shot into, and Babourgeois, that T-30 shows up, who everyone should have known was back there. So Marshall comes in and he's working on some mediums. But again, I have to say these guys are really out of the fight unless you bring them into the fight. And they're in the fight because you're in a spot that right now doesn't really matter. We're laying out some damage, I'll give you that much. But what's going on down in the south? What's going on down the south? Now the counter argument is that while you're busy shooting these guys and they keep coming in to get shots on you, they're not going down the south or busy doing something else. So you are keeping them busy. I will agree with that and I will concur. But it goes back to what I say most of the time on things like this. If you're going to go to a non-standard kind of non-meta position, then you need to make it work and make it work fast. And down you go. You need to make it work and make it work fast. It means you need to press the advantage. If you're just going to hang out in that spot, rocking back and forth, taking sniper shots, and granted, you got 2,900 damage. Something like this is probably going to happen. Eventually, the enemy is going to take notice of it, and they're going to put somebody there who can hurt you. And the FV obviously just drives up and nukes you. Later on, Ghost gets killed, and that's pretty much the end of the fight. I will tell you, for my money, you two should have gone down to the south and helped them clean up the guys down there. Go down south, help them clean them up. Now, when you show up down there, it's possible that all those guys that hung out in that alleyway shooting you in the face would have moved down there. But at least you would have seen who it is you were fighting as opposed to taking shots from FVs and T-30s and God knows what else over there. So that's my thoughts on that. I just think the initial positioning was a bit misguided right there. I definitely would not have done that with the top tier platoons. Let's move on to the second one. All right, here we are on our second one. Same two players. Top tier again in a 3-5-7. Holy cow, twice in a row. I don't know if these battles were in a row, but these are the two he sent me. Siegfried Line spawned into the north spawn, and we're headed down to the south. When I watched the first one the first time, I said, well, I did not love that position. I did not love that position. So I watched the second one, and I watched what happened. I said, wow, that's two positions I did not love at all. And just to belabor the point, going back to the one before, which I didn't mention, a lot of times players would go to these kind of farming positions and get pretty good damage, but their win rate isn't very good. And there's a lot of people to shoot at, and they get a lot of damage. And sometimes they actually have those epic games where they carry, and they are able to, clean up a bunch of enemy near deads and pat themselves in the back and go, hey man, that was awesome, I carried them, I went to a great spot and I carried them. But the question is, that's all well and good and you were able to carry it, but what would have happened if you'd have been in the critical train to begin with? Would it ever have got that bad to where you actually had then to carry? If you hadn't spent that much time in these farming positions, which are good for farming but not very good for map control or winning the game, what would happen if you actually went to a important position? So we have a platoon of 3 now. It's actually a top tier platoon of 3 mediums. We got a bat chat out in the field, and I'm sure they have comms and they're talking, and they said, hey, let's go out in the field, you guys go down here and work it, and we'll clear the field out and then we'll flank them. Well, let's see what happens with that entire idea here. We've got a bulldog running in. Marshall, I'll tell you, and I'll show you a couple examples. You do get a little fixated at times on people, and you miss shots that you have. So that was a good shot there. Ghost gets hit. They know you're here now, right? Every enemy gun knows you're here. The good news about this spot in this particular match is there's no artillery. If you were here and there was artillery, this would be pretty much a no-go zone, and I assume that Ghost knows that. That was a nice shot right there. And it looks to me like he's kind of leading this train. So some of this may be you saying, well, he's leading this, better player, I'm going to follow his lead and see what I can learn out of this. One thing you've got to realize is sometimes the leader doesn't exactly have a great plan. And sticking with a bad plan simply because the guy you're with says to or does so himself is not necessarily always the right answer. So I don't know what the dynamics of the discussion was right here. Just take that into consideration. And we got this Scorpion up here who's actually going to be a thorn in your side. I thought that was a good shot, but there's a HE shot, and this is where the whittling away starts. You're kind of sitting there poking at this guy, but actually you had shots at this dude right here. So you're taking a blind shot at him. I just done this, looked around, and that's one of those things, it's camera technique. After you shoot, look around, even with a fast reloading tank like this. Now that would have taken your gun offline, but I'm willing to bet that that Scorpion is no longer there. Oh, no, you hit the... Hard to tell because you actually hit the bunker instead of where he was. So we're going to start picking at this tortoise, and let's see what we got over here. That guy's dead. All right, that's good. Now we got a Type 4 heavy coming in there, and bam, onto your platoon mate, and we're messing around. There's a hit from the tortoise. He gets a piece of you. Ghost is in big trouble, and about here in this fight, there should have been the little devil and angel on your shoulder, and the devil would say, stay in there, you got it. Just keep working it. And the angel would have said, hey, why don't we go somewhere else? Why don't we go somewhere that's important? Like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but we're losing the city. And the 2 top tier heavy or mediums, along with the Batchat, are futzing around in the field. Let's talk about this as well a little deeper. This tortoise is not even in the game if you aren't sitting there poking at him and letting him shoot you. Neither is either one of those Scorpions. They're not even playing right now if you don't show up in this field and start giving them shots. Now you killed one, granted, and you're whittling the tortoise down, but this tortoise has absolutely nothing to do right now with map control or winning this game. All he has to do with is exposing yourself to his gun and letting him take shots at you. Now you're hitting him. Granted, you're doing some damage, but look what's going on up in the city. What if you two were up there and that dopey Type 4 heavy, the 2 Scorpions, and the tortoise just sat out in the field, picking their nose? Maybe your Batchat goes in there and keeps them busy. There's a T-49 down there as well. Now, you don't want to get flanked, so the T-49 and the Scorpions and all those guys and the Bulldog and the guys you killed, had they all swept around there, that'd be a problem. But that's not going to really be a problem that fast. And based on where your tanks went in this game, it wasn't going to be a problem anyway. You're just giving these guys an opportunity to play, and they would have been completely out of the game. Your 2 guns would have been in town. Your guys in town are actually doing all right. Imagine the DPM of those 2 140s in town right now. Town's done. And now you're working to the outside. Now you come in from the inside the town, and the clown's out in the field, you can dismember them at your leisure. But as it stands, we got 22,280. We're not really, we don't have any kind of map control other than we're sort of denying them using the field, but who cares? The field is like useless until late game or an early rush, which isn't happening. And there goes the bat check. I don't know what the discussion here was. It was probably, hey, we got to make something happen. We're stuck in this field picking our noses. Scorpion G actually went down and hid behind that thing. There comes the bat chat. So he's going to rage in with a one-shot action and pretty much die. BAP. And done. Scorpion G kills him coming around the corner. And we're in trouble. So stubbornly, once again, stubbornly hanging on. This whole problem behind you has been developing for a long time. And one of the worst things about going to a farming spot or a bad spot, the only way to make that decision worse is to keep making that decision. I mean, you guys should have been gone long ago. There was simply no reason to sit there. You weren't contributing to winning the game, really. If everybody won up top, then all you were really doing is farming. You needed to win the city. Then you can deal with the clowns who are hanging out outside. So we'll watch the bitter end here. We got Ghost and you attempting to take a few more shots. You just really want to get this tortoise, it seems like. There's a nice shot. And the Type 4 says, hey, you know what? We're winning. I don't really feel like there's anybody out there who can deal with me, so I'm just going to come over and get my little HE shot and schwammer on you right there and see if we can get one more shot on him. That was a good shot. Got another one. And we're looking at the tortoise. We'll come up over here, see if we can get another shot. Maybe the tortoise will miss or bounce. And finally, I think here in a moment, it looks like maybe you and Ghost figure, you know what, it's time to get out of here. Maybe one more shot is taken here. No, that misses, unfortunately. And now we're backing up, but of course this backup action at this point in the game is only going to expose you. You get out into the flat and down you go. The tortoise is just waiting for you to kind of move out. He ends up killing you, and it looks like this is a loss based on the results page of this thing. So just to sum up those two games, man, I really, to a large extent, your initial positioning was terrible for both games. They're both good farming spots, but a lot of things have to go your way for them to work, and that just really releases the initiative and the winning. What am I looking for? That just really relies on the rest of your team to win. So if you're going to have a big game doing stuff like that, it's because the rest of your team kept them busy enough that you were able to farm, not because you were able to get in there and force the conditions for a win and then go on to farm yourself, the guys out in the field. I think I belabored it enough that really at the end of the day, that's what I saw right there. As far as technicality of you driving the vehicle and taking shots and all that, that all seemed fine. I don't think that's really your problem. As with most people at your level and trying to get better, it's really positioning decisions and then oftentimes sticking with bad decisions until the bitter end, just because, by golly, that's where I wanted to go. Man, I hope this helps. If you got a BS flag or you want to, if there was something else you and Ghost were discussing, definitely put it down there in the comments. It'd be a good discussion to have, because I am willing to bet there are plenty of people who believe that to be a fantastic spot and that was a great positioning decision, and that maybe it's the team's fault that it ended up happening. So it will be a good discussion anyway on your decision, and I look forward to it. For the rest of everybody else, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you.